Welcome to the deep dive. We take stacks of sources, articles, reports, notes, and basically pull out the key insights, the stuff you really need to know, giving you a shortcut to getting up to speed.
Yeah, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. And today we're diving into a story that's really gripped New Orleans, and honestly, it has implications far beyond.
It really does.
For the first time in, over 300 years of the city's history, a sitting mayor is facing federal criminal charges.
Unprecedented. Absolutely.
So this isn't just another news headline that's going to disappear tomorrow. It's a huge legal battle, touches on ethics, public trust, all of it.
Right.
Our goal today is to really unpack the story behind the people versus LaToya Cantrell. We want to understand how we got here, what the accusations actually are, the alleged cover-up.
And what it all means, right? Not just for New Orleans, but kind of for governance in general.
Exactly.
And the sources we have for this, they go way beyond just the headlines. They give this really granular look at the charges, the history behind it, the wider context.
So it's not just the what happened.
No, it's the why it matters. We're trying to connect those dots.
Yeah.
It's a story about power, trust, personal actions, all playing out very, very publicly.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The heart of it, this historic indictment. Who are the main players here?
Well, you have Mayor LaToya Cantrell, obviously the sitting mayor of New Orleans,
Right.
and Jeffrey Vappie, who was her bodyguard, a former member of her security detail.
Okay. And the big news was this superseding federal indictment against both of them. Can you maybe unpack what superseding indictment means? Because it sounds, well, serious.
It is serious. So a regular indictment lays out charges based on initial evidence. A superseding indictment means prosecutors have come back, usually after more investigation.
Okay.
And they've replaced the old indictment with a new one. It often means they've added charges, maybe added defendants, or just refined the case with more detail or evidence.
So it suggests the case evolved or strengthened from the prosecution's perspective.
Potentially, yes. It signals a development. And in this case, it's a big development. We're talking about 18 felony counts listed in this superseding indictment.
18. Wow. That's a lot. It's not just one or two things.
Not at all. It points towards a pretty broad scope of alleged wrongdoing.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The specific charges, they kind of paint a picture of the alleged scheme.
They really do. And when you break them down, you see different angles. There are essentially four main types of charges here, based on our sources.
Okay, let's go through them.
First, you've got conspiracy. This basically alleges an agreement between Cantrell and Vappie to commit illegal acts.
An agreement, so not just individual actions, but working together.
Exactly. The allegation implies they planned or coordinated, the misuse of funds and the cover-up over a period of time. It suggests shared intent.
Okay, conspiracy. What's next?
Then there are multiple counts of wire fraud. This is a federal charge, and it comes into play when interstate wires think phone lines, the internet, emails, electronic bank transfers are allegedly used as part of a scheme to defraud someone.
So using technology across state lines to commit fraud.
That's the essence of it. Here, it's specifically tied to the alleged misuse of public funds. So maybe booking travel online for personal trips using city money or communications about the alleged scheme happening electronically.
Right, which in today's world is almost everything.
Pretty much. It gives federal prosecutors jurisdiction. It focuses on the how of the alleged fraud, not just the end result.
Makes sense. Okay, third type.
Obstruction of justice. This one is, well, it's really serious because it alleges interference with the legal process itself.
How so? What kind of interference are we talking about?
Our sources point to a few things alleged in the indictment. One is attempts to obstruct internal investigations within the city government.
Like blocking auditors or city watchdogs?
Potentially, yeah. Or hindering departmental inquiries. Then there are allegations of efforts to intimidate colleagues.
Using their positions to pressure people.
That's the implication. Pressuring staff or other officials, maybe to stay quiet or not cooperate. And then, crucially, alleged actions to mislead federal investigators, directly interfering with the federal probe.
Wow. That's a direct challenge to the investigation.
It is. It suggests active steps to block the truth from coming out in various levels.
Okay. And the fourth category?
Perjury before a grand jury. This is also incredibly serious. It means allegedly lying under oath, specifically to the federal grand jury that was investigating the case.
The grand jury decides if there's enough evidence to even bring charges, right?
Exactly. They're a key part of the process. So Allegedly lying to them is seen as a fundamental attack on the integrity of the justice system.
So if you put all four together, conspiracy, wire fraud, obstruction, and perjury, it's not just one alleged bad act.
No, the sources suggest these charges paint a picture of a sort of comprehensive alleged scheme. It wasn't just about the money, allegedly, but also about actively covering it up, interfering with investigations, and even lying under oath. It looks, based on the charges, like a multi-layered alleged effort to misuse authority and then conceal it.
Let's dig into that financial part a bit more. The alleged misuse of public funds. You mentioned it was tied into the wire fraud charges.
Yes, that's a central element.
The indictment gets specific about the amount, doesn't it?
It does. Over $70,000 in public funds. City money, taxpayer money.
70,000. And what were these funds allegedly used for? Not paving streets or city services, I gather.
According to the indictment, no. It alleges the money was used for personal travel trips that weren't official city business,
Okay.
and also for the personal use of a city-owned apartment. Again, not for official duties.
Personal trips, personal use of a city apartment. But why? What was the alleged underlying motive for using city funds this way?
This is where it gets really pointed. The indictment alleges the purpose behind diverting these funds was to conceal an intimate personal relationship between Mayor Cantrell and Jeffrey Vabby.
Ah, so the allegation isn't just they spent money they shouldn't have. It's they spent public money specifically to hide a personal relationship.
That's the core of that part of the allegation, yes. That public resources were allegedly used as a tool to maintain secrecy about their private lives.
So what does this all mean? It's not just about bookkeeping, is it? It's about how public resources were allegedly channeled for very private, undisclosed reasons.
Precisely. And this is where that ethical conflict really comes into sharp focus, as the sources describe it. They talk about these colliding lines between public trust, personal behavior, and governing authority.
Colliding lines. Yeah, you can see that.
When someone holds public office, especially a mayor, they're given significant power and control over public money. There's a fundamental expectation of the trust that they'll use it only for the public good.
Right, not for personal benefit or covering up personal matters.
Absolutely not. So these allegations, if proven true, represent a serious breach of that trust. It suggests public funds were allegedly used for private purposes to hide personal conduct.
Which really undermines the whole idea of impartial public service.
It does. It raises the question. Were decisions made in the best interest of New Orleans citizens, or were they allegedly influenced by a need to keep this relationship secret, using taxpayer money to do it?
That's a heavy question, and you can see how that would erode public confidence, not just in the individuals, but maybe in the system itself?
Definitely. It challenges the integrity we expect from officials and can make people cynical about government if they feel the lines between public duty and private affairs are being blurred or erased, especially using their money.
So if this alleged scheme was happening, how did it stay hidden? Let's talk about the concealment aspect, especially the digital side of things.
Right, because covering tracks seems to be a major part of the allegations here.
And the indictment points to a massive amount of digital communication, doesn't it?
It really does. The sources highlight this number. Over 15,000 WhatsApp messages exchanged between Cantrell and Vabby.
15,000. Just think about that volume. That's constant communication, planning, coordinating.
Daily life, potentially. A huge digital footprint. But here's a kicker, according to the indictment.
Okay.
Many of these messages were allegedly deleted. Specifically, deleted later on to hide their activity.
Deleted. So not just old messages automatically disappearing, a deliberate action?
That's the allegation. A conscious effort to erase those digital breadcrumbs. The sources suggest this wasn't random, but happened strategically, maybe as investigations started heating up.
Imagine the volume of information in 15,000 messages, and then imagine the alleged intent behind deleting so many of them. It points strongly towards trying to conceal something.
It certainly raises serious questions about what those messages contained and why someone would allegedly feel the need to systematically remove them. That alleged digital deletion becomes a really central piece of the obstruction narrative.
Yeah, it fits with the obstruction charges you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. And that alleged deletion isn't seen as just an isolated incident in the sources. It seems to be presented as part of a much broader pattern of alleged efforts to block investigations.
So more than just hitting delete on WhatsApp.
Oh, yes. The sources detail other alleged obstruction tactics. We already touched on the alleged interference with internal city investigations.
Right, like blocking access to records or hindering internal probes.
Yes. And the alleged attempts to intimidate colleagues potentially using their authority to pressure people into silence or non-cooperation.
That's serious.
Very. And then, of course, the alleged actions to mislead federal investigators directly, providing false info, withholding evidence.
So when you put the alleged message deletion alongside these other alleged actions.
You get a picture, as outlined in the indictment, of a multi-pronged alleged effort to impede inquiries at every level, city level, federal level. It suggests a systematic attempt to control the narrative and prevent scrutiny. More like calculated interference than just, bad record keeping.
That idea of it being calculated brings us to something mentioned in our sources, this loop court analysis perspective. How does that analysis frame these alleged actions?
It's quite striking, actually. The loop court analysis, as we see it described, pushes back hard against dismissing this as just personal indiscretion.
Right, which is often the go-to phrase to downplay things.
Exactly. Instead, this analysis calls the alleged behavior a method in motion, and even more strongly, a calculated misuse of power.
A calculated misuse of power. That's direct.
It implies intent and strategy. The analysis suggests this wasn't just a series of individual mistakes or poor judgments.
More like a plan.
That's the idea, like a fraudulent scheme that systematically leveraged authority and secrecy. It posits that their official positions, the very power entrusted to them by the public, were allegedly used as tools.
Tools to commit the alleged fraud and then tools to hide it.
Precisely. Leveraging authority for access, for resources, and then leveraging that same authority, allegedly, to enforce secrecy, intimidate potential witnesses, and obstruct investigations. Even the alleged deletion of messages fits into this view as part of a deliberate choreography to maintain control.
So Loop Court frames it not as a personal failing that spilled over, but as an alleged systematic manipulation using public office.
That seems to be the core of their analysis, yes. It shifts the focus from private behavior to the alleged abuse of public power itself. And that distinction is really crucial for understanding the gravity of what's being alleged here.
Absolutely. Which leads us right into the significance of all this. Why is this case such a big deal, historically speaking?
Well, as we mentioned at the start, and the sources really hammer this home, Mayor Cantrell is the first sitting mayor in New Orleans history to face federal criminal charges.
First ever, in over 3 centuries.
Think about that. New Orleans has been through so much: hurricanes, floods, economic booms and busts, political scandals. It's a city that has, as the sources say, seen its share of crises.
For sure. It's known for its resilience, but also its, let's say, colorful political history sometimes.
Right. But even with all that history, a federal indictment of the person currently holding the city's highest office, that's completely new territory.
So it sets a major precedent.
A huge legal and political precedent. It's not just another local scandal. It marks a unique moment in how public officials are held accountable in the city. It sort of raises the bar, or at least signals a different level of federal scrutiny.
And what does that mean for a city like New Orleans?
Well, it's a major test. A test of its institutions, its political system, and maybe even its identity. How does a city grapple with allegations that strike at the very top of its leadership? It becomes a case study, really, not just locally, but potentially nationally.
So connecting this back to the listener, why should someone, whether they live in New Orleans or not, care about this specific case? What are the broader takeaways?
I think it forces all of us to think about those boundaries we discussed earlier. The line between a public official's private life and their public responsibilities.
And what happens when those lines allegedly get crossed, especially using public funds?
Exactly. It brings back that core ethical conflict. Public trust versus personal behavior versus governing authority. When you have allegations, this serious misusing taxpayer money, obstructing justice, lying under oath, all allegedly to hide a personal relationship.
It shakes the foundations.
It really can. It has the potential to seriously erode public trust, not just in the individuals involved, but in the institutions of government themselves. People start asking, can we trust any of them? Are they all using their power for personal gain?
Even if the allegations are specific to certain people, the doubt can spread.
Right. If people perceive that those in power can operate with impunity or shield their private lives with public money, it undermines the whole basis of democratic governance. It makes you think about accountability.
So this case really makes you think about the boundaries between a public servant's private life and their public duty, and what accountability truly looks like. It's a reminder for everyone, everywhere.
Definitely. And the range of charges here really underscores that. It's not just one thing. You have alleged financial exploitation, concealment, and perjury. It covers money, hiding actions, and allegedly lying about it.
It touches on multiple facets of integrity.
It does, and it raises these really deep questions about the limits of office and accountability. How far does authority extend? Where does personal life end and public responsibility begin, especially when resources are involved?
And when multiple lines are allegedly crossed financial, ethical, legal, it becomes incredibly complex.
It does. The sources suggest the comprehensiveness of the charges speaks to that complexity. It highlights how difficult it can be to maintain public trust when there are allegations of such wide-ranging misconduct. It's not just a legal case, it's a real stress test for the concept of civic integrity itself.
Okay, so we understand the charges, the alleged concealment, the significance. What happens next? What are the next chapters in this story?
Well, the immediate next step legally is the arraignment.
Right, you mentioned that earlier. Explain that again, what happens at an arraignment.
It's basically the formal start of the court process for the defendants. Mayor Cantrell and Jeffrey Vappy will be brought before a judge. They'll formally hear the 18 felony charges against them,
Okay.
and they'll enter their initial plea. Usually that's guilty or not guilty.
So it's procedural, but it's the official kickoff of the court case.
Exactly. It's the point where they formally respond to the indictment. And it sets the stage for what could be a very long legal road ahead.
A long road.
Yeah.
What might that involve? What are the potential phases after arraignment?
It could go a few different ways. You'll almost certainly have pretrial hearings. These are really important.
What happens there?
Lawyers argue about legal issues before trial even starts. Things like what evidence can be used.
Yeah.
And you can bet those alleged deleted WhatsApp messages will be a huge focus.
Right. Can the prosecution actually use them if they were deleted?
That's the million-dollar question, legally speaking. There will likely be intense arguments about whether those messages, if recovered, are admissible in court. Forensic evidence, authentication,
Yeah.
it gets complicated.
So the admissibility of that digital evidence could be a key battleground.
Absolutely crucial. It's not just what was allegedly said, but can it be legally proven in court? That fight alone could take time.
Okay, so pretrial hearings on evidence. What else?
Well, there's always a possibility of plea negotiations.
Uh-huh.
The prosecution and defense might try to reach a deal to resolve the case without a trial.
A plea bargain.
Right. But if no agreement is reached,
Then it goes to trial.
then it goes to trial.
Yeah.
And given the number of charges and the complexity, a trial could be lengthy, very high profile, and demanding for everyone involved.
And beyond the courtroom, what about the political side of things?
Oh, the political ramifications are massive
Mm-hmm.
and ongoing. There are the civil implications, potential lawsuits, but the political fallout is immediate and potentially long-lasting.
Especially given her term timing, right?
Exactly. Mayor Cantrell's term ends in January 2026. It's
Okay.
not that far away in political terms, especially with a major federal case hanging over everything.
So her political future is obviously uncertain.
Hugely uncertain. Her ability to govern effectively while under indictment is already being questioned. But it's bigger than just her.
How so?
This case could significantly shape the next mayoral election in New Orleans. Who runs? What issues dominate? How does the public feel about leadership and integrity?
Right. It could cast a really long shadow over the city's politics.
A very long shadow. It influences the narrative, public perception. It could really define the next chapter for New Orleans leadership, depending on how it all unfolds.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Tying it all together. You mentioned that loop court analysis again. How did they frame the overall situation, the sort of closing verdict view?
Their perspective, as presented in the sources, really brings it back to that core theme, they say. The People versus LaToya Cantrell isn't just a trial of an individual. It's a test of civic integrity in a city that's seen its share of crises.
A test of civic integrity. That puts it squarely on the city and its systems, not just the defendants.
Right. It frames the whole situation as bitter than guilt or innocence in court. It's about the resilience of the city's ethical foundations. Can the system, the legal system, the political system, the community effectively address allegations this serious?
And can it restore public confidence afterward?
That's the fundamental question. New Orleans has bounced back from so much. This is a different kind of crisis, an internal one, challenging trust in leadership itself. How the city navigates this, the transparency, the accountability, it will say a lot about its civic health.
So it's really a defining moment.
It seems to be, yes.
Mm-hmm.
A moment that will likely be looked back on for years, regardless of the outcome, as a key point in the city's relationship with power, trust, and governance.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it leaves us with a lot to think about. That loop court analysis ends with a really powerful question, doesn't it?
It does. It asks, will justice restore trust? or will the system be looped into silence?
Looped into silence, meaning will things just carry on or will there be real change, real restoration of faith?
That seems to be the implication. Will the outcome, whatever it is, lead to a renewed sense of trust in public office? Or will the controversy just fade, leaving underlying issues unaddressed?
It's a question that resonates way beyond New Orleans, really. This case, whatever happens, is going to shape how we talk about accountability there.
For sure.
And maybe it serves as a critical reminder for all of us everywhere about that constant balancing act between having power and deserving the public's trust. It's something we always need to watch.
And it really invites you, the listener, to think about what that test of civic integrity actually looks like in practice. For any community, including your own.
What are the signs you look for?
Yeah, what tells you that trust has been restored after something shakes it? Or what signals that maybe silence or just moving on without addressing the core issues has won out?
It's a vital question because how we answer that really defines the kind of governance we have, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It shapes the whole relationship between the people and those they elect to serve them. Food for thought, definitely.